Good morning, one and all. It's Thursday. I'm John Iadarola. This is still the Damage Report against all odds, and we're very lucky to be joined today on a pretty wild and wacky day in the news by the host of Fair and Balanced and Ring of Fire, Farron Cousins. Welcome back.
Thanks for having me, John. It's great to be here.
Great to have you here. As we were talking about before the show, it's been a little while. Some stuff's been going on. Media news in particular is going absolutely crazy, so it's good to have you back.
Always a pleasure to be here.
Pleasure to have you here. How has the news been treating you? I know, Dark Brandon is running again. It looks like Bernie is going to be challenging him. Not everything is lining up how I'd like in the media, but what do you think?
I'm just sitting down here in Florida watching our governor become the laughing stock of the entire world. I mean, the clip, from Sunday or Monday, whatever it was, it had Howard Dean scream vibes to me.
Are you talking about the head bobble seen around the world? Oh my God, what?
Yeah, so just watching that nutball just absolutely crash and burn faster than Jeb Bush is just, it's bringing me a little bit of hope down here in Florida. So I've enjoyed that very, very much.
Well, look, I do have to fact check you already. That is Italian American erasure. He's not a nutball, he's a meatball. We already know that. But anyway, yes, actually, we're gonna be talking about Ron DeSantis in just a few minutes. But in addition to that and his cartoon mouse related issues, we're also gonna be talking about Tucker Carlson, who has reappeared to reassure his viewers that no, secretly he's actually happy and laughing about the fact that he was fired. It's not bad at all. He's free, he's been set free. And Donald Trump faces yet another trial, a particularly terrible one. We're gonna give you an update on Representative Zoe Zephyr, who has been sort of expelled from the legislature, like mostly expelled. We'll be talking about that in anticipation of our expected interview with the representative tomorrow on our program to cap off the week. And then a whole lot more besides. In fact, we have a special guest who's gonna be joining us in the aftermath to lead it off. Media Matters Andrew Lawrence, who I have derived a ton of joy from his Twitter activity and work at Media Matters over the years, will be joining us to talk about Fox News as well. And Marjorie Greene decides to declare war, thankfully not on Mexico this time, but on the concept of being a stepmom. And I think a lot of people have an issue with that. First and foremost, Ted Cruz, who loves watching videos of stepmoms. So anyway, we've got a lot to talk about through the course of today. And in anticipation of all that, if you wouldn't mind hitting the like button and sharing the stream, that'd be great so that people know we're live. And if you wanna send us any comments, tweets, or super chats, either to let us know about breaking news or make a witty or incisive comment, we'll read it live, give you our reaction. And if it's good enough, you just might win a $100 Blue Apron gift card. So get those comments in. But with all that said, Farron, are you ready to talk about the news?
Let's do it.
Okay, let's do it. Wait a second, wait, we are already getting breaking news. Is it Benny's birthday? Benny Carolla, 29. So now, happy for Benny's birthday, jealous as I always am when anyone is significantly younger than me. I've reached that point in my life. I'm bitter and old, but happy birthday to Benny anyway. Okay, now with all of that said, let's talk about the news. We've had months of Ron DeSantis hitting Mickey Mouse on a daily basis. Well, the mouse finally hit back with Disney launching a lawsuit just yesterday against Governor Ron DeSantis and his administration, alleging that the state's recent many actions, and we'll go through a lot of them, toward the company have amounted to a targeted campaign of retribution from the government in response to their constitutionally protected free speech or their protected speech. They accused the DeSantis administration in part of violating the company's First Amendment rights, citing the governor's recent statement that the board would hold, quote, Disney accountable. Bear in mind, he's said way more than that, and not just in speeches and appearances. He wrote about his war against Disney in his book, The Courage to Be Free, which he totally wrote, saying that fighting against them as a triumph against woke corporatism. I mean, the woke thing couldn't make it any more clear that this is about their speech. This is about culture. This isn't about their business, their tax structure, their authority over their own geography. This is about him fighting against the woke or whatever. They say that this has been an orchestrated effort to stifle the company's free speech. Now, I don't have any legal training. I've watched a little bit of some procedural courtroom shows, but I wasn't really paying attention. And so I turn now to Farron. What do you think about this lawsuit? Did you see this coming, and do you think they have a shot?
I think they 100% have like one of the strongest cases out of pretty much any of the lawsuits that are in the news right now. Like this one, this is a slam dunk. Like you just pointed out, he already said it in his book. Like your own words have already proven that you did this for political reasons, not because you cared about the tax district, not to mention the fact that there are literally dozens of other special tax districts throughout the state of Florida alone. So if it was about a special tax district, you would have done it to everybody, not just the one company that decided, we don't like your don't say gay legislation. But what I love about this, because when the story first came out yesterday, my immediate, reaction was, why didn't we do this a year ago? I mean, that's when this whole fight started and the first legislation was passed. Why didn't you do it then? But then I started thinking about Disney movies, right? You've got the villain. The villain is doing the build up. They're doing these horrible things. And sometimes the villain is very popular. But eventually, the tide turns against the villain. And that is exactly what Disney was waiting for. Ron DeSantis right now is at the weakest point he's ever been. And this is a guy who just won re-election by 1.5 million votes in Florida, something that has not happened for decades in any statewide election. So he had the wind at his back. He was, on the precipice of usurping that front runner status from Donald Trump. He was polling ahead in Iowa, polling ahead in New Hampshire.
Yeah.
But then everybody got a taste of it and saw, wow, this guy's really, really bad. Like not just, his policies are bad, but he's bad at public speaking. He's bad at dealing with people. He doesn't have any actual ideas other than culture wars. Billionaires are pulling out from him. Ken Griffin, Thomas Petterfy, all of those individuals are looking at him like, dude, we're kind of done with you. Disney saw that and said, now's the time we get him because everybody in this country is turned against him. We can take him down. So yeah. I think it was a brilliant strategy. Again, at first it was like, why didn't we do this sooner? But now it's like, okay, I totally get it. You don't want to take him on when he's at the height of his popularity because everybody's gonna be against you. Now they're against him, that's when you strike.
Yeah, you don't attack him when he's strong. And also that would be too short. That's not dramatically interesting. The Disney lawyers were driven off by DeSantis at his strongest. They went into the jungle, ate grubs, sang songs, and now they've come out bulked up. Ron DeSantis has stripped Florida of all of its food, and the hyenas are starting to get desperate. And I think it's their time to strike. Bearing in mind that like a lot of companies could either want to or even try to launch this sort of lawsuit, but they wouldn't necessarily have the size and the money to be able to keep it going for a year, 2 years, 3 years. But Disney has a lot of money. If they feel like this is important, then they potentially can keep it going. I want to jump ahead though to give you some examples of some of the recent stuff they've done. And by the way, thank you for mentioning the other independent tax districts. I actually didn't even know that about Disney. So
I only learned it a couple days ago. So that was quite a shock to me too.
Yeah, well, yeah. So the fact that he's only going after one and not the others, that's suspicious. The fact that he's only going after them immediately after they sort of in a very limited sense speak out against don't say gay. Let's bear in mind, don't say gay, the Disney like attack against Disney is basically like the Bud Light protest of a year ago. It was like, what did they even do? It's not like Disney ran goofy against DeSantis in his re-election bid. I think they put out a statement where they said they don't support it, and DeSantis was like, "How dare you?" It's like the Bud Light thing. It wasn't even a publicly available bottle, you idiots. So anyway, they have their government-appointed board to try to take control of Disney. They have voted to nullify earlier agreements that had given Disney authority over most construction near its Orlando resort, which I don't know that they have the legal authority to do that, but they're going to try. And he's appointed a bunch of the justices of the state Supreme Court, so maybe it'll work. Let's see. The Florida Senate has just okayed in a panel, every 3 year, I think, comprehensive inspection of the monorail at Disney World, which is a fine thing to do. I'm all for more regulation and oversight of critical infrastructure, but you clearly didn't give a GD damn about this until the whole Disney thing blew up. Remember, he also said recently that they might build their own park nearby or a state prison to try to like ruin the area. I don't know how much more he could do to make clear that he is personally biased against an individual corporation, which if this was a general thing where more politicians were being more hostile to powerful corporations, maybe I'd be down. But this is very much not how government is supposed to work.
It's really funny that one of the threats is like, oh, you're gonna sue us? Well, guess what? We're gonna make sure people don't die on your monorail. Ha, take that. Make it like wonderful. Why are we not already doing that? I mean, that thing is high enough. If you fall, you're not gonna survive. Inspections should be more than 3 years apart. They should be 3 times a year. I mean, we've seen horrific train derailments. Let's not have one in the sky at Disney World. We should be doing that already. And also, everybody needs to remember Ron DeSantis himself got married at Disney World.
Did he really?
He did. He did. He talks about that in his book as well. He wasn't a fan of it, but his wife definitely wanted to, and he wanted to make her happy. So that had to have cost a heck of a lot of money that he gave to Mickey Mouse, and they're now using that money to pay their lawyers to go after him. So it all comes full circle.
I'm glad that he staked out that early opportunity to make his wife happy, because I have a feeling that it's been few and far between the opportunities since then. I really need to start playing that ad from his first election again, of him and his family like obsessing over Donald Trump and his catchphrases and everything. Man, that's embarrassing. Maybe not as bad as the Puddin Fingers ad, but still pretty bad. By the way, really fast, just to put a button in this, there was a poll, Reuters Ipsos poll this week. Less than half of Republicans had a more favorable view of DeSantis because of his fight with Disney. So it's not even really working amongst like the people that it is like lab tested to appeal to. And majorities of both Democrats and Republicans say they're less likely to support a candidate who supported laws intended to punish companies for their positions on cultural issues. So you can keep doing this. By the way, if they like genuinely want to do a boycott, you're allowed to participate in boycotts. You're not obligated to spend your money in support of any corporation. But I would just say that in terms of public relations, maybe don't make your boycotts contingent on them just kind of briefly being inclusive in a shallow way, because it makes you look really bad. And I feel like we're seeing that right now. With that said, why don't we turn to another aspect on this? Dwayne Wade recently appeared on Headliners with Rachel Nichols and was asked about some of the moves by the Florida state legislature. Obviously has a long history with the state. And he said, that's another reason why I don't live in that state. A lot of people don't know that. I have to make decisions for my family, not just personal individual decisions. I mean, obviously the tax situation is great. Having Wade County is great, but my family would not be accepted or feel comfortable there. And so that's one of the reasons why I don't live there. As father to a 15-year-old daughter, Zaya, who came out as transgender a couple of years ago. So I have a ton of respect for being willing to transplant your family to make sure that everyone feels comfortable and accepted, and the willingness to actually point out that that was one of the reasons why, in this case, moved to Florida, knowing that, I mean, how many millions of conservatives are going to like declare war on Dwayne Wade now as a result of what you just heard? Farron, what do you think?
I admire that. I mean, it just reminds me, like one of the biggest questions I always get from people is, I'm in Florida, so they ask me like, listen, I'm in Florida too. My family is under attack. I have a transgender, son or daughter, or I am transgender, or I'm a teacher in Florida. And they're asking me like, what do we do? Like, can we just leave? I don't have the means to leave. And unfortunately, there's a lot of people in that situation who, unlike Dwayne Wade, they don't have the means to just say, all right, pack it up, we're out of here. And if they did, they would. So this is not, as conservatives may think, like, oh, it's just one guy who, no. There are countless people throughout the state who are now afraid that they're not even allowed to exist, or that their children are not allowed to exist, or that their profession is under attack from this state government. It truly is horrific what we're seeing down here, this retribution from this DeSantis administration, all to appease just the most fringiest characters that we have down here. And people are afraid and they want to get out, but unfortunately, they don't have the means to do it. And I think as time goes on, we're going to see more people, as long as this continues, say, listen, I may not have the means to do it, but now I have to. I have no choice. I'm going to have to abandon my job. I may have to, live in a car for a couple months to keep my kids safe because of what this man is doing to the LGBTQ community. And I fear it's going to get much worse. And even after DeSantis is gone, this state's been going downhill with hardcore Republicans for decades now. We haven't had a Democratic governor. 25 years ago, I believe, was the last time we had a Democrat in a position of power in Florida. And it's trending more red, it's trending more extreme. We're getting some of the worst Republicans from around the country moving down here and setting up shop. It's terrifying. So I do think it will continue to get worse, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of reason to believe that. I mean, you guys came pretty close to electing a Democrat, not this most recent time, but the time before.
Right.
But who knows? I mean, look, maybe Ron DeSantis, he doesn't seem to have the best political instincts, I don't think. Some of the culture war stuff, he's doing well, but I also think that, like, if all you care to do is appeal to the worst conservatives in the country, I don't think you have to be an Elon Musk level genius to figure out how to do that. I feel like a lot of idiots online have done quite well in looking for animal medicine to take, and it's really easy to appeal to these people. But the fact that he's having so much difficulty against Donald Trump implies that he might not be the incredibly talented politician that we were led to believe. In terms of moving, I'm glad that you acknowledged it's like a thing that you hear a lot from people who maybe they mean well, but they haven't really thought it through. Just go. First of all, just go from where? From Florida? What about the issues with Tennessee and Missouri and Montana and Alabama and Georgia suppressing them? There's a lot of places that you would potentially have to just go from. And that is very costly, very difficult. Even if you have the money, you're supposed to lose your job potentially, start a new career. It is difficult. And a lot of people don't want to just go. They feel an attachment to that place. And they feel like those who have made their states these, Christian dystopias or whatever, they don't have ownership of that state. They've usurped it and they want to fight back. And I respect that. It's super difficult. I understand if you do have the means and you leave, I get that too, by the way. But yeah, it's not easy for people to just uproot everything and start over 1,000 miles away. So let's have a little bit of empathy.
Yeah, and I'm lucky enough, obviously, with what I do, I can do this anywhere. As long as I've got an internet connection, I can bring my little camera with me. I'm okay. My wife is a teacher, so obviously she is, to a degree under attack by this administration. But that's also a job where those skills are going to translate to any other state in the country. And we've talked about it. Like, we really, really have. My wife would love to get out of this state if it weren't for the fact that our families are very close to us. And so we have a good support network and we have our friends. But she's been speaking a lot more recently, almost indicating that, listen, this may be imminent. Like, this may be a place, I know, we've grown up here. We've got our roots, but every now and then you got to transplant those roots to a different pot that's more accommodating to what you need. So it's not off the table for us. And honestly, it's more in the middle of the table now than it used to be. So we'll see. I would hate to have to do that. I do like it here. I like the beaches. I like, the weather most of the time is nice. But if it comes down to my family's safety, we're out. We're out right then.
Yeah, and for people who maybe haven't been following enough along, this isn't just, as if you could use the word just, stripping people's rights away, pushing them in the shadows or whatever. Like, they are talking in multiple states about locking up parents, locking up doctors, locking up guidance counselors who help trans your kids. Like, we don't know if they will do this. We don't know if Lizzo will get locked up for bringing, drag queens on stage in Tennessee, but there are a lot of Republican politicians that want you to believe that they're gonna start rounding up people. And there's a lot of regular conservatives that are horny as hell for it on social media. That's become increasingly clear. Anyway, with that said, we're gonna take a short break. When we come back, Tucker Carlson took a few days to compose himself, but he has returned at least briefly, and we're gonna break it down after this. Okay, everybody, let's see what is going on out there in the audience. Oh, want to give you a little heads up. Obviously, today is Thursday. That makes tomorrow almost certainly Friday. On Friday, we take out the trash. So if you'd like to vote for the community garbage person of the week, you can go to the community tab at youtube.com/thedamagereport and log your vote there. Brett and I can't wait to see who you choose. Let's see, I saw this comment from Intersectional Dragon who says, I can relate to that. I'm in Texas and it's so toxic here, but I can't afford to leave. Semi-unrelated note, John, can you all talk about a Prop A vote in San Antonio? I just early voted on it yesterday. Among other things, prevents arrests for abortion in our city. We've come under fire from Abbott before for having more progressive policies, and I expect it to happen again. Intersectional Dragon, thank you for putting that on my radar. I was not familiar with that proposition. I get the basic idea though, based on what you said, and it sounds good, but I also assume that you will very much be in the almost literal crosshairs of Greg Abbott as a result of that. Okay, let's see what's going on out there. Christopher Moore sent in a super chat saying, the same day I met Jerry Springer, his talk show episode featuring Guar aired. He autographed his book to my roommate, Jerry Springer, honorary scumdog of the universe, a total class act, RIP. Thank you. Yeah, in our pre-port, we were talking about Jerry Springer and some people have had opportunities to talk politics with him. I mentioned, I don't even know if people remember this, that he used to have a radio show on Air America. I don't know, God, it's probably like 18 years ago now, but I used to listen to that back in college. Don't do the math, but I used to listen to that and it was good, Okay.
The math on that though, John, you were listening to Air America. I was working for Air America, so that makes me feel even older. Yeah, Ring of Fire started on Air America. Yeah,
so I did not know that. That's fascinating.
Now you've just made me feel older.
Yeah, I mean, I was listening to a lot of it. If that makes you feel better. But anyway, Farron and John the House says Moondragon. Thank you. Moondragon also gifted 5 memberships to the Damage Report. Thank you for that. We have some sort of gifting sickness going around because Lisa Dodson also gifted 5 memberships. Thank you, Lisa. Vicky Gray also gifted 5 memberships. Thank you, Vicky. Thank you to all of you. Very nice of you. Okay, let's see. Beach Dragon says in a super chat, this whole Ron Mackey thing is like a modern Tom and Jerry, and we all know the mouse, Jerry, always wins. Sorry, Puddin hands. That's a good point. You don't want to be the cat in that metaphor. Sailor Digurin, member for 27 months, says, Farron, I want to thank you for your impassioned and angry video about the Alabama educational system this week. It was powerful and relevant, and we should all be as PO'd as you were.
Y'all have no idea. Well, my editor told me he cut a lot of it out because it got. I was way more impassioned than y'all even know because it just angered me so much. But yeah, that's over at Fair and Balanced. If anybody wants to check it out, Kay Ivey and her destruction of the state of Alabama, absolutely just horrendous. What's happening there?
Maybe we need a Snyder cut. Mix it around, or like the Rocky IV cut that Stallone put out. Maybe that's what we need in these trying times. Peter Hewitt Dutton, member for 7 months, says, Farron, please tell Athena I've subscribed. I'm getting scared that I'm going to get taken out.
That is Athena is the kitten that we adopted back in early December. She's appeared in a couple videos. I actually had to remove her from the room before we started here. She was in a little box that I can't throw away because she loves it too much.
Adorable. That's cute. Federnatian Dragon, member for 17 months, says, Farron, always watch Ring of Fire videos during the break between the show and the aftermath. Particularly love you taking down Cruella DeSantis. Jesus. Okay, we'll be right back. That's hilarious. Okay, everybody, you had 72 hours or so without having to hear his voice, see his face. Buddy's back. Take a look.
Good evening, it's Tucker Carlson. One of the first things you realize when you step outside the noise for a few days is how many genuinely nice people there are in this country, kind and decent people who really care about what's true.
Yeah, it's weird. I've actually noticed throughout this week that it feels like on balance, the people on air are a little bit nicer than they were before this week. I feel like there is a little bit less active dishonesty in the media. There's just something about this week where briefly that felt true, but it's gone now, it's ruined. Tucker Carlson is back. Well, as back as he can be, when you bear in mind that he's not at Fox, obviously there, he's at one of his many studios that he has in his various mansions. And seeing him there doing a version of his monologue, I have to quote Andrew Lawrence, who's gonna be joining us on the show, says, imagine getting fired from your job and then dressing up like you're going to work and going to a recreation of your work and pretending like you didn't just get fired. That is 100% what he just did. Now, he showed up for a reason. He had a few points that he wanted to raise. We're gonna get to those in a second. But first, I haven't gotten Farron's take on Tucker getting fired and now sort of putting his toe back in the news waters. What do you think?
For somebody who's been on television for 20 plus years at this point, I would think Tucker would know a little bit more about, framing up and not being so close to the camera, because that's just, just aesthetically horrible shot, Tucker. You should know better. You've been in this business long enough. And it's really sad. Like, he didn't have to say anything. He could have just been like, hey, everybody, I've got big things coming in the future. It's gonna be awesome, super totally. But instead, just like, people are so nice to me. I've never stepped outside my comfort zone. Like, you just sound like a weird Dorothy arriving in Oz kind of moment there. And I'm not even sure what's happening, but sometimes the best thing to say is nothing. And I think Tucker should have taken that advice.
Yeah, and it's easy advice to take when you have so much money that you could not work a day in your life or the next 100 lives and be perfectly fine. But he did decide to come back. And look, I get it. A lot of people have been mocking him and delighting in the sorry state that he's in. One of those people notably is this guy. So I get why he would want to say something. When I inevitably get fired from TYT, I'm probably gonna put something out. And yes, it probably will be a little bit cringy and desperate. So prepare yourselves, everyone. I'm gonna need your support. But anyway, it's just the leading with everybody's so nice and so funny. I love it out here, actually, in the wilderness. It's not cold at all. That's the vibe that I got off of it. And when you combine that with those very carefully staged go-karting videos or pictures that he put out yesterday, where he's just like, yeah, look, dude, I think that the Tucker doth protest too much. I feel like he's probably feeling the pain. He just doesn't want us to know.
It's the meme of the crying face with the calm face over it. That's exactly what he's doing right now. And look, Tucker is super lucky. I mean, we all know that he loves Russia so much, but keep in mind, if this had been like Fox News Russia under Putin's control, he wouldn't have been fired. He would have, oh no, Tucker fell out a window. What do we do? So trust me, dude, things could be a lot worse if things were the way that you want them to be here. So you get to go ride your go-karts, you got your mansion, you can dress up in your little flannels and act like you're doing the woodworking, like you're Ron Swanson or something. But you don't, like John said, you don't have to do anything. If I were you, it'd be like, you know what? Oh no, I'm fired. I'm gonna go sit on a pile of money and sob. Just go away.
Yeah, I would do cash angels for so long. But anyway, like I said, he did come back for a reason. So why don't we jump to this next video?
The other thing you notice when you take a little time off is how unbelievably stupid most of the debates you see on television are. They're completely irrelevant. They mean nothing. In 5 years, we won't even remember that we had them. Trust me, as someone who's participated. And yet at the same time, and this is the amazing thing, the undeniably big topics, the ones that will define our future, get virtually no discussion at all. War, civil liberties, emerging science, demographic change, corporate power, natural resources. When was the last time you heard a legitimate debate about any of those issues? It's been a long time. Debates like that are not permitted in American media. Both political parties and their donors have reached consensus on what benefits them, and they actively collude to shut down any conversation about it. Suddenly, the United States looks very much like a one-party state. That's a depressing realization.
Okay, so there's a lot going on there. First of all, you realize how stupid most of the discussion is. Like, do I need to run you through a list of some of the lowlights of Tucker Carlson's career? Did I need to know that people microwave their testicles? Okay, did I need to know which of the M&Ms he's most turned on by? He admits there that he participated in these stupid debates, but even that is a tactic. Let's be clear. He routinely does this. Criticize the media, and then to attempt to sort of win you over by appearing authentic, he then just throws away as an aside, oh, I also totally did that whole time. Well, he did, but to be clear, the corrosive impact that he had on American political discourse wasn't at the end of the day about the M&Ms. It was about far more insidious stuff than that. To the extent that you're not allowed to have these discussions, and boy, does he love to say that you're not allowed to do the thing that he got paid tens of millions of dollars to do on a nightly basis for many years on Fox News, which I shouldn't have to remind you is financed by corporations and the ultra wealthy. It is corporate news every bit as much as CNN and MSNBC and all of the others. They love to pretend that that's not true. It is in that they are radicalizing people to be obsessed with cultural nonsense so that they don't realize that the people that Tucker Carlson goes out and has fancy dinners with every night are getting what they really want in the absence of news coverage, okay? That's what's really going on. Anyway, sorry, Farron, what do you think?
To me, well, first of all, you're right about all of that, 100% of it. But to me, that wasn't necessarily just Tucker, saying like, oh, I'm gonna trash, all of this stuff that I usually do. Anyway, it's almost to me looking like a campaign video. I mean, that's the kind of statement, whether it's like, I want to run for office, but then he's going after both parties, and it's almost like we've got a one-party state. Are you about to join forces with Andrew Yang? I mean, what's going on here? There's always a motive for a guy like Tucker. So that's what we have to start questioning, right? What's behind this video? There's some motivation why he's coming out doing it. And I don't think it's only because of the, story that came out yesterday from the New York Times about all those redacted text messages. I think that played a role in the timing, but not the purpose of the message. So that's what hopefully we can flush out, coming days, weeks, months, whatever it is. There's a reason he's using these specific words. There's a reason he's framing the issue in this certain way. Now we just got to figure out what that reason is. What are his motivations? What's going to be his next move?
Yeah, 100%. And we're gonna be talking more about sort of the general look ahead later on the show, and we're joined by Andrew Lawrence. For now, though, I have been enjoying, and I know a lot of people are, the copium on the right having lost Tucker Carlson. Here is Marjorie Greene going way over the top about what it means for him to have been fired.
Our First Amendment is free speech, but it's also freedom of press. And when a gigantic media company like Fox News fires their number one, Tucker Carlson, not for him doing anything wrong, not because his ratings were bad, but they literally fired him because they caved to the woke mob. What we're seeing the end of the First Amendment. That's how I see it. I can't see it any other way.
I mean, you should be able to, though. I get that you're admitting that you can't. You're not thinking outside of the box there, but I don't think that it's the end of the First Amendment. I'm pretty sure that under the First Amendment, whether components of free speech or free press, companies are not obligated to continue to pay people tens of millions of dollars. And if they do take back those contracts, I don't think that that's a violation of people's rights. If it is, then I'm rethinking everything, because my free speech rights are notably being denied by CNN, MSNBC, and Fox News because none of them are paying me millions of dollars to talk about the news. But anyway, yeah, look, she is obviously incredibly worried about not having Tucker Carlson to spread the same sort of conspiratorial nonsense that is core to her politics. I noticed too, though, Farron, like she didn't acknowledge, she didn't feel the need to even gloss over or be dishonest about all of the different explanations going around for why he might have been fired. So whether it's the hostile work environment and the misogyny and all of that, whether it's him having like revealed that he despises Donald Trump and the MAGA movement, like she glosses over literally all of that to say it's caving to the woke mob, which, as we know, Fox is often inclined to do.
That's the part that really just kind of got me about that. Like, well, Fox is woke now. They're all sitting around their offices, drinking their Bud Light, being just like, I'm more woker than you. No, I'm the wokiest. And then Brian Kilmeade is like, nobody's more woke than me. Like, she just says words, never once thinking about what they mean. Obviously, she has no idea what the First Amendment actually is. And it's just buzzword vomit. It is all that people like Marjorie Taylor Greene can do, because you got to throw in woke, you got to throw in First Amendment, you got to throw in whatever else it is, hatred for free press, and it's so incredibly stupid because they have no real arguments. Like, if she wanted to say, listen, I think Tucker might have a case for wrongful termination. I have consulted with some labor lawyers. They say that his contract made it. Like, if you want to talk intellectual about it, talk to people smarter than you. But if you just want to get the word vomit, then yeah, Marjorie, you're doing a great job of that, making people just dumber every time you talk and they hear it.
100%. I love you attempting to work through how her mind works. You risk your own sanity, you know that when you do that. But let's very briefly end with a couple of little hypothetical comparisons. I always like doing that. Hunger Games has one. So firing Tucker Carlson is breaking the First Amendment, but is she saying that Zoe Zephyr's First Amendment rights were violated in Montana? My guess is no, she thinks Montana did the right thing. Well, that is a great topical reference there, but I don't even think we need to go so far afield. She believes that they have no right to fire him, even if there's cause, which there appear to be like a whole pile of, I can't hold all of the causes, pick a cause. Which I find to be interesting because it generally seems like they believe employers should be able to fire people with no cause anytime they want, anywhere in the country. When have they ever been on the side of workers to be able to be protected against summary termination from their position? This seems to be the one position where you should not be able to be fired from, which is weird coming from the right-wing populists who are on the side of the working man, not those elites making $20 to $30 million a year for sitting in a suit and talking about testosterone levels or whatever. Anyway, with that said, there is so much more news to get to, so we're gonna jump to one more wild bit of news from this week. Let's do this. Apologies to the TD. That was abrupt. I acknowledge that. That was my wrong and my bad. I'm sorry for that. Anyway, while the trial continues, including the testimony, the first day of E. Jean Carroll's day in court, so to speak, after her accusations of rape against Donald Trump, was pretty powerful. And she obviously was, like, to the extent that you can be, considering how dark the entire situation is and the continued harassment that she faces, is thrilled to finally be able to have some acknowledgement of what she says she experienced. She said, "I'm here because Donald Trump raped me. And when I wrote about it, he said it didn't happen. He lied, shattered my reputation, and I'm here to try and get my life back." She is described as being largely matter of fact on the witness stand. So much so that after she wept while telling jurors that, quote, being able to get my day in court is everything to me, she rapidly composed herself and declined to take a break. "I'm not gonna sit here and cry and waste everybody's time." Now, meanwhile, Donald Trump, who has decided that he doesn't need to show up for any of this, he'll pitch that as a move of strength. I personally see it as him being a terrified little weenie who can't bear to sit and face the person who's making these accusations against him, but to each their own. He has, of course, been viciously attacking her on social media. We'll turn to that in a second, but Farron, what do you make of this?
So far, I mean, E. Jean Carroll, her testimony was very powerful. And I've talked about that, I've been talking about this story obviously for many years now. She, unfortunately, the way this whole system is set up, is the one facing the uphill battle here to prove that this happened. I mean, Donald Trump, the smartest thing he could do, much like Tucker's, like just shut your mouth. You know that this is a very difficult thing to be able to prove, especially given the time that has gone by since it happened. Now, she is able to tell this story and get this out there and make it very clear and, makes it real for these people. If there's anyone out there, in the jury or whatever, who thinks that this is all made up, she is doing exactly what you would want your client to do if you are the plaintiff's lawyer in that case, because she is speaking directly, as you said, matter of factly. She is not letting her, emotions overtake it to where the jury may look at that and say, well, this is a bit much, maybe this is exaggeration. It's perfect. Like, I mean, if I had to describe it, I would say what she's doing is exactly what she needs to do. Yeah. And when you know more about the story, when you really listen to her explain what happened, it wasn't just Trump saw her in the department store, shoved her in the dressing room. There was banter between the two, as she described it. There was light flirting, very almost provocative kind of talk, but that should have been the end of it. And Trump took that as, all right, and this is according to her testimony, obviously, this is my opportunity. Clearly, she wants this. So when you know those details that for the most part hadn't been widely revealed, the story is very horrific for E. Jean Carroll.
Yeah, and seems to be a perfect representation of a dating strategy that he described on that bus with Billy Bush.
Yep.
Like if you are a person who seems to believe that you can just grab someone, well, then you undercut your defense against accusations that that's exactly what you did. In any event, his his defense, I should say, his legal defense at this point seems to be viciously attacking her. We'll put up this bleat. I'm not reading it, considering the content, and he's just the worst. He seems to believe that once again, the best defense against accusations of sexual assault is to claim that you're not turned on by the person accusing you of rape. I will literally go to my grave never understanding how a single human being could think that that is the way you should approach this. But anyway, he continues to attack her. He has now been warned by the judge about those attacks, that he potentially risks contempt of court if he keeps doing this. We'll see. He is very difficult to stop from lashing out in this way, but this time it might hurt him. We'll find out together. With that said, we do have to take our last break of this first hour. When we come back, we got important stuff to talk about. By the way, I should remind everyone, I'm sure you've talked about this, Farron, him continually saying that, as with all of the many women who have accused him of sexual assault and sexual harassment, that she's not his type. And of course, when he was asked in court to identify who it was in a photo, he said it was his wife, Marla Maples, and it was her. So he got her mixed up with a woman that he married, but totally not his type, and he would never make a move or anything like that. Anyway, okay, so by the way, so I saw a couple of comments from people, and thank you for the feedback. I always love the feedback, saying that you don't think that we should be covering the Tucker Carlson thing, that it's not important. Thank you for the criticism. I obviously disagree. I'm just gonna be straightforward about that. He might very well, in the end, not be important. People like Glenn Beck really aren't that important, but once were. Right now, though, and especially in the lead up to this, he's an incredibly influential person on right-wing media, right-wing, regular person thought, as well as politicians. I think it's fairly indisputable that he is an important factor in American politics. I cover American politics, and so that's gonna be part of my beat. I apologize, thank you for the feedback, love you. But I just disagree about the premise of the comment. Anyway, with that, Bailey Rain says it's already getting worse. The proposed Florida HB 999 would be devastating if it passes. Farron, are you familiar with that one?
HB 999, I'm not, but there's
I'm not.
There's always time to look it up. But no, I'd have to do some digging into that. I'm not familiar with what that is.
It's the higher education reform bill. So, anti-woke stuff, I'm sure.
Oh, good.
So that's fun. Diana wants to know, Farron, how's the puppy?
She is wonderful. She's not happy today because we've got just horrendous thunderstorms right now. So she's at the back door holding her stuffed rabbit, wondering why she cannot go outside and run around with the rabbit. So,
poor pup. Styx Dragon Sharon says in a super chat, Jank cannot fire you. The Dragon Squad would revolt. Please do not tell Jank what he can't do, because that may be the best way to get him to do it. And I need this, damn it. I need this. Anyway, the Chibs gifted 1 Damage Report membership. Thank you for that over on YouTube. Zakar has been a member for 7 months, says we should do an exchange program. Everyone eager to get away from the woke mob can move to Florida, and everyone who's sane can flee Florida. Yeah, maybe we could set up some sort of like bipartisan swapperoo. Anyway, with that said, oh my God, there's been a lot going on Twitch. Let's see, Carnitas Lachonk has been here for 23 months. Thank you for that. Billy B points out, where is MTG's outrage for Don Lemon? Yeah, that is weird. It's almost like she doesn't actually mean anything she says. Was saying that CNN allowed to fire him? Anyway, Court for Jester's been here for 32 months. Says Tucker Carlson gets fired and Steven Crowder gets divorced. It's a good week. I wonder if Steven Crowder's wife saw him cowered away from Sam Cedar. Not saying that Sam stole Steven's wife, but it's ironic. Jesus, that's an aggressive post. I don't generally think about or talk about Steven Crowder much. Divorce is rough. I don't take joy out of anyone really going through a divorce. Some of the stuff he has said as a result of all of that is interesting in terms of what he seems to think about law and everything. But anyway, yes, obviously a rough time for him. Okay, Donkey Teeth Bite says, let's discuss the most likely reason for John to get fired from TYT. My number one reason is the unfair slander of Sprocket. That dog had it coming, his big dome. But anyway, let's see. Holy Beer Dragon, thank you for the 30 months. We'll be right back. By the way, we're getting some suggestions for where Farron may be able to relocate. Movie and Scarf Dragon is suggesting Maine. Still on the coast.
That's where Tucker is, though. I don't know. That state doesn't seem big enough for the both of us.
Is he in Maine? He was just in Florida a couple days ago. I mean, he probably has a house in every state at this point. Anyway, thank you for the suggestions, everyone. We're gonna find Farron a good place to hole up during these trying times. Anyway. That's the fun stuff. Now we get serious, unfortunately, starting with this.
Last week, I spoke on the governor's amendments to Senate Bill 99, which banned gender-affirming care. This was a bill that was one of many targeting the LGBTQ community in Montana. This legislature has systematically attacked that community. We have seen bills targeting our art forms, our books, our history, and our healthcare. And I rose up in defense of my community that day, speaking to harms that these bills bring and that I have firsthand experience knowing about.
That is obviously Representative Zoe Zephyr speaking out in defense of herself in anticipation of the vote to potentially censure or expel her from the state legislature. Well, we now have resolution to that in a sort of echo of what happened in Tennessee, showing just the slightest bit of learning from that experience. The GOP decided to effectively expel Zoe Zephyr from the legislature. Not technically, but is barred from being able to speak, being able to actually go into the chamber. Will still technically be able to vote and participate in committees, but not discuss proposals, discuss amendments. So you get some of the position that your constituents voted you into. And that's why I say maybe they've learned the slightest bit from their war on the Tennessee 3, that maybe they think this will lead to less of a pushback after effectively silencing and kind of removing from office the state's first transgender lawmaker. We'll see, It's devastating, it's anti-democratic. It's a joke from a party that says that they care about freedom of speech and not canceling things or whatever, as if we need more evidence that they never meant any of that. I feel like we've been moving towards this throughout this week. Farron, what do you make of it?
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing they say is, well, you broke decorum. I mean, we have to be
fair and not the decorum.
We have to be on our P's and Q's while we're in this body. Yeah, which is such a BS thing for anybody to even claim. Because I mean, technically, when you understand like the whole thing here, there was no real decorum breaking. It was just raising the microphone so that the individuals who were there to protest the legislation could have their voices heard. And it wasn't just to protest, but to say, listen to our lawmaker. We've sent this person here to do what we need them to do. And that is exactly what Zoe was doing there. So for her to suffer these consequences for speaking out to support this LGBTQ community that is facing, with bills like these, legislative genocide. You can't exist in our country. You can't exist in our state. And it's a total farce. You know, Republicans originally told us when all of this began throughout the states, like, well, we got to protect the kids. We're just protecting the kids. And then, of course, we get legislation this week that says, oh, by the way, we're going to ban gender affirming care for adults as well. Nope. It was always about getting rid of these people. Those are the enemies. These are the ones we don't want here. It is, I'll say it again, this is legislative genocide. That is what they're attempting to do, not just in Montana, but across the country in Republican-controlled states.
And look, I already know conservatives are gonna freak out about what you just said. How could you say that? It's not genocide. We're just, we're only protecting the kids. We're only interested in, again, none of this has anything to do with kids anymore. They moved on. They spent a couple of months hiding behind that obviously fake defense, and they've moved on. But so hypothetically, so what if we wanted to ban public displays of being white, as an example? I mean, obviously, we're not gonna hunt down and shoot everybody who's white, but you do need to cover up your skin. And anyone who helps you to have white affirming whatever, anyone who gives you a crew cut or sells you a no fear tank top or something, well, then they're gonna be locked up. And if Dave Matthews were to perform, then that's obviously out. Like, can you imagine if any other community was being targeted in this way to take away more and more chunks of rights and effectively saying, oh, I guess maybe at the end of the day, you can exist within the confines of your own skull, but anything beyond that is gonna get the iron boot of the government. They would not accept it for a single second. And that is what we are seeing in states across the country, day after day after day after day. This isn't one crazy politician, one crazy state legislature. This is literally dozens of pieces of legislation in individual states. States who, like Texas, their state legislature isn't even a full-time thing, doesn't even deal with a whole lot of stuff, but has decided to be very busy when it comes to curtailing abortion rights and attacking the trans community. And so I think that you're 100% right in the way that you've portrayed that. My guess would be that in this case, as within Tennessee, they're going to regret the moves that they have made, because they seem to be like trying to elevate and increase the power of these people that they're trying, like at least ostensibly trying to suppress. We're gonna have Representative Zephyr on the show, that's the idea anyway, tomorrow to speak about this. But we're gonna see that now just the representative is a national figure to be able to go on the news, talk about the silencing, talk about the war on trans people. So, very, very, very smart move there, GOP.
And it goes even beyond just the gender affirming care, because you do have people, I'm sure you've seen the clip. Ben Shapiro last week was asked the question, like, should we ban men from wearing traditionally female clothing? And he says, yeah, I think we should. So we're now going after dress codes for being in public. I mean, that is how quickly all of this has snowballed. That is how rapidly it has expanded to go just beyond we're protecting kids. Now it's, what, if you're a dude, you can't wear these items of clothing in public at all, anywhere. That's what we want to do. That's what we think should happen.
Yeah.
I'm not saying Shapiro said he wants to do it, but he said he's not obviously opposed to it happening. And that's how these ideas start, right? The whole like, well, should transgender women be able to participate in women's sports? It started as a, that's a weird thing. And boom, boom, boom. Now it's like, oh my God, this is the worst issue facing the United States of America today, as our coastlines down here along the Gulf Coast are eroding at a rate faster than we thought. No, let's not worry about climate change. We got to make sure that only women at birth are playing women's sports in college. That's what they want us to focus on. It's infuriating at every level.
I don't know what you're talking about, man. I think it's great when people are just asking questions. Historically, that has always gone very well. Yeah, it wasn't the AG of Texas is saying you have to wear clothing consistent with your biological gender. First of all, like maybe I'm an idiot or whatever, but I feel like they are totally blowing a million holes in every argument that they've ever made about the distinction between gender and sex. What do you mean it's consistent? What does gender have to do with clothing? It's a fundamental, immutable, biological thing. It doesn't have anything to do with any of this stuff. You seem to think it is. You seem to think that Levi's are gender affirming. That's what I'm getting off of you. And furthermore, again, Republicans used to pretend that they liked freedom. So far beyond that. If I can't choose to wear a kilt, there's no rights anymore. It's all up to the government at that point. If you can't choose to put on pants, then all of your other rights aren't rights. They are, as George Carlin pointed out many years ago, temporary privileges being given by a government that can and probably will choose to dial them back whenever the hell they want. Anyway, we have other terrible news to get to close out the hour. So everyone, I'm gonna need you to buckle up as we launch into this.
I wanted to address my senators, Cruz and Cornyn, who neither of whom regrettably are in the room right now. But I would like for them to know that what happened to me, I think most people in this room would agree, was horrific. But it's a direct result of the policies that they support. I nearly died on their watch. And furthermore, as a result of what happened to me, I may have been robbed of the opportunity to have children in the future.
That's Amanda Zarowski talking about her experience with Texas denying her necessary abortion. The details are that 18 weeks into her pregnancy, her water broke, putting her at a high risk of a life-threatening infection. As a result of that, by the way, there was no possibility of the pregnancy, obviously, at that point going to term. That's not a question at that point. But because Willow is the name that Amanda had given to the baby at that point, still a heartbeat. Under Texas law, they were unable to terminate the pregnancy. Even though her life was at risk, there was going to be no birth, couldn't do it. And so she received an emergency abortion only after her condition worsened and she went into septic shock. Now, look, this is devastating on a personal level for her. Can't even imagine her and everyone who knows her going through that experience. But it's also very important to point out that there are a couple of things that sometimes Republicans will do when they at least realize a little bit how heartless and cruel and barbaric they seem. So sometimes when they strip away your rights and stop you from having an abortion, they'll throw in a couple of little exceptions. They never mean what the GOP says that they mean. First of all, the idea that even for these exceptions, you would have to go before like authority figures or the local government to prove that you qualify is demeaning intentionally. But look at this. They would say, if it's medically necessary, that you can get it. Yeah, how many people are going to suffer terrible risks to their health? How many people are going to die to demonstrate that they don't really mean that? And the law is written to terrify doctors from actually doing what's medically necessary. We are seeing that in multiple states already. And a lot of these laws are still new. The human toll of these supposed exceptions that don't actually exist in practice is gonna be devastating. Farron, what do you think?
You're 100% right. I mean, that actually was a pretty good mic drop moment right there. But Republicans don't care. I mean, they want to make sure that that child can get to the point where they eventually become a gun buyer here in the United States, right? Isn't that what this is about? We got to make sure that these kids can grow up and be good old gun-toting Republicans. But they're killing women in the process. there will be a death toll that goes along with these pieces of legislation, and that blood is on the hands of those Republicans 100%.
Yeah, you can call yourself almost anything if you set up this system and are okay with it. What you can't call yourself is pro-life. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for the first hour of the show. Thank you everyone who's been watching on the linear platforms, listening on the podcast. We got a lot more to come in the aftermath, so don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Aftermath, everybody. I'm John Iadarola. Farron Cousins remains, and we're going to be talking about some more news coming up. You can continue to send us your comments, tweets, and all that. We'll respond as we go. But first, we have a special treat for you. Tucker Carlson is out. I've certainly had thoughts, but I was very curious. What do the people over at Media Matters think? Those poor souls who have to actually watch every word that comes out of his mouth. And so we're very lucky to be joined on the program now by the Deputy Director of Rapid Response at Media Matters, Andrew Lawrence. It's a pleasure to have you on. Welcome to the show.
No, thank you, John. Thank you so much for having me. It's good to be here, especially on this topic.
Great to have you here. And by the way, speaking of rapid response, I assume many of the people at Media Matters had some pretty rapid responses to this like Titanic figure in right-wing media actually stepping down. I have a lot of questions I want to ask you, but first, just what was your initial reaction to this?
Shock more than anything. It came so far out of left field, and they have stood behind him after everything, all the controversy surrounding Tucker Carlson, all the terrible things that he said, and they stood by him through thick and thin. And then not only that, but Tucker didn't just have his Fox show. He also had Fox Nation, his Fox Nation shows that he had become the face of. He was the main selling point for Fox Nation, which was Fox News's online alternative. And even the programming decisions that they've been making over the last couple of years, every single new host was doing a Tucker Carlson impression. Even the non-opinion hosts, the so-called news hosts, were just regurgitating what he had said the day before and putting a newsy veneer behind it. And everything that they had been doing revolved around Tucker Carlson. And for me personally, I mean, look, I was on vacation on Monday when this news broke, and all of a sudden my phone started blowing up. But for me, it's just shock. Like I just can't believe it. It's like if the Chiefs cut Patrick Mahomes the week before the Super Bowl. It makes no sense at all. And I'm still trying to, my head is still swimming. I can't believe it.
Yeah. I totally get that sports reference, by the way. Anyway, but I get the general idea. So, I think it's funny that you point out that they're doing Tucker impersonations. I certainly agree. In the same way that I think a lot of the like right wingers in the independent right wing media were doing Ben Shapiro impersonations for a while. Now I think they're all honestly doing Tucker Carlson impersonations. And even Tucker Carlson was doing a pretty good Alex Jones impersonation there for the past couple of years. So I have a couple different angles I want to go on this, but why don't we start there? They have these people who've been trying to be Tucker Carlson for some time. So do you think they will, like, obviously they're hurting right now in terms of the ratings, they're down or whatever. But can they just slot in one of these carbon copies of Tucker Carlson in the long run? Will this really matter? Was Tucker necessary, or is it just the slot's gonna get a lot of old white men to watch it so we can put whoever we want in it?
I lean towards the latter. I mean, I've said for a long time now that Tucker Carlson had influence, but he didn't really have power. And the real power lied with Fox News and 8 p.m. And I think you take a look at, Bill O'Reilly, exact same time slot. When he left, when's the last time you even thought about him? Same thing with Glenn Beck and Lou Dobbs. It's more about, I think there's a real Pavlovian response for Fox News viewers to turn on Fox News at 8 o'clock. It's been drilled into their heads for decades that Fox News is all you can trust. That's all you can do is watch Fox News and don't believe anybody else. Now, did the Tucker Carlson firing and the way that it happened so sudden with no farewell from Tucker or anything like that, does that break the trust that Fox News has built up with their viewers over the decades? And I think there is a possibility of that. But look, Fox News is going to be around. Tucker Carlson is doing a video on Twitter, and eventually there's going to be a big controversy in the Biden administration or involving some Democrat, and people are going to flock to Fox News to see what's going on. But I just don't know what their strategy is right now because, like we were saying, everybody was doing a Tucker Carlson impression. If you're just going to bring in somebody like that, if you're going to bring in Jesse Waters, that's just dime store Tucker. Why get rid of Tucker if that's what you're doing? So I mean, I feel like over the years I've gained a pretty good understanding of what Fox News is trying to do and what their strategy is. I've got no idea right now, just absolutely no idea what the next move is for them, and where they're really going to go with the 8 o'clock hour moving forward.
Well, why don't we flip it then? What happens to Tucker? Like you mentioned Glenn Beck, like these things you said, Lou Dobbs, Bill O'Reilly. Maybe we could throw Megyn Kelly on there as well. These are people who were huge. Bill O'Reilly was very much like the Tucker Carlson of his day. Glenn Beck was this like bizarre comic figure almost, and then they left, and then that was pretty much it. They still exist, they still have shows, they still sometimes produce books or whatever, and I'm sure there are people who would literally kill me if they were told to by that host. But will Tucker Carlson just be one of those, or does he transcend that paradigm in some way?
I think there's a possibility for him being a little bit more than them, but he'll never have the influence that he did at 8 o'clock on Fox News, no matter what he does. And I don't see, I mean, one thing you have to understand about Tucker is he has a gigantic ego, and anything other than the 8 p.m. Time slot on Fox News is a step down from him. I don't see him going to Newsmax or OAN. First, I don't think that they can afford him. But I do see, I could see him, editor-in-chief at Daily Caller, and then sitting on the board at a couple of think tanks where he doesn't have to show up and gets $200,000 a year, writing a few books, doing the book tour, the speaking tours, maybe jumping in on Rumble and getting a bunch of stock or something like that where they can shower him with money. Rumble seems to be throwing a lot of money around. But as far as like TV, cable news, I think he's done with that. And without that, like he will never have the influence that he did before, no matter what he does or where he goes. But yeah, I think he's essentially done. Yeah.
Well, and I think, I'm sorry to jump in, but I do think it's also important to just remind everybody too that, I mean, Tucker already did a stint at CNN. He did a stint at MSNBC. Now his stint is over at Fox. So it's not like he could even fall back and be like, hey, CNN, you're looking for a new direction. You've got no ratings at all. How about me? Like, this guy has bounced around a lot until he found that niche at Fox News. So I guess the question after all of that is, why did he fit in so well at Fox when he couldn't hack it at all? Really in the grand scheme of things at these other networks, what finally clicked that made him so popular and so dangerous there?
Well, I think Fox News just gave him complete free reign to do whatever he wanted. There were no restraints put on him at all. And so he was free to push the great replacement theory, right? And despite calls from the ADL to fire him over it, that wouldn't fly at CNN or MSNBC. And I think that those types of racist conspiracy theories draw eyeballs. I mean, it just does. And when you have Tucker Carlson sitting there, you have an audience that's been primed to only trust him and Fox News for decades, and saying all these things like Cory Booker's going to come and destroy the suburbs, or UFOs are real, stuff like that. They're not seeing that anywhere else. And so you start thinking, like, if I don't tune into Tucker Carlson tonight, like, I might die. I mean, legitimately, like, that's what he is telling these people, that like, I'm the only one telling you that the vaccines are killing people. So, if you don't watch me, you're gonna die. And so I think that the viewership, along with the time slot and the free reign that Fox News gave him. I mean, he came in right after Roger Ailes left. There was a total power vacuum there, and he took complete advantage of that. And you've heard, I heard Brian Kilmeade say a few times in the past few days that all these shows are sort of on their own island. And it wasn't like that before Ailes, and they just had free reign. They could do whatever they wanted. And so I think all of that mix is sort of what led to his success there.
Interesting. I want to mix it up and ask you one final question.
Sure.
As a person who identifies as being part of the left, it's been a rough period going back always in America, basically. There were some wins in the last century, but there's a lot of bad news, and Biden's running again. It's very easy to get sort of down. But I saw a Twitter thread that you started recently stating that not only is the left winning, but absolutely destroying the right in a number of different areas. I found it to be inspiring. You want to make your case for why you think people shouldn't be as down and depressed as maybe they are? Yeah,
I think that there are definitely a lot of people suffering right now, and because of the right wing. And there are battles that we are definitely losing. But I think that, between the midterms, between Tucker, between the public polling that we're seeing on trans issues and wokeness, how that isn't the public is not supporting the right's messaging on that type of stuff. I think more than anything that there's a lot of hope. There's a lot of reason for hope right now. And especially, this whole Tucker thing. And look, I know that I'm in the forest, watching this stuff all day, every day. But the right wing has lost not only their chief propagandist, but their strategist as well. I mean, all of this stuff was revolving around Tucker. And I think if you've thought to yourself over the last couple of years that things seem like they're accelerating and things are getting worse at a quicker pace, I think you can attribute a lot of that to Fox News and Tucker Carlson in particular, and the way that he was mainstreaming these white supremacist conspiracy theories and ideas, the anti-trans panic, the CRT stuff, all of that. Like, you can trace that to Tucker Carlson, and it's a huge win. It's a huge win. And the Twitter thread, I'm not trying to say that all things are rosy and everything is great and we are living in a socialist utopia at this point and Medicare for all is on the horizon or anything like that. But I saw Nicole Wallace do an entire segment about court expansion a couple of days ago, and it just blew my mind. So I think that and young people are on our side. I just think there's a lot of reason for hope and optimism right now. And it's a long fight and it's not happening overnight, and we have to keep chipping away. But I don't know, I'm encouraged. Okay,
I love it. I love ending on a note of optimism. I want to thank you for your work, obviously, for joining us, but also for the work that you do at Media Matters. I've relied on Media Matters for many, many years. Appreciate the oversight that you've done on not just Tucker Carlson, but a number of different toxic figures across the last couple of decades. So thank you for that, and appreciate you joining us.
That's really nice of you to say. It means a lot. And no, thank you for having me. I enjoyed it.
Thank you. Where can people follow your work, by the way?
Just MediaMatters.org we watch Fox News, so you don't have to. And you can find me on Twitter. Just search for Andrew Lawrence, and I got the baby picture.
Nice.
Is the easiest way to find me. So
thank you. I thought for many years that you were actually a baby. I'm shocked to find out you're a full-grown man. Anyway, thank you for being here. Have a good one.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay, everybody, we're gonna get to one more topic in just a sec, but first I want to welcome some of you who have joined up, including those on Twitch, like Holvira. Thank you. Carte Blanche, she's been here for 25 months. Says, what is the likelihood that Dragon Daddy will read this? Well, apparently 100%. By the way, congratulations, Dragon Daddy. Thank you, much appreciated. Oregon Craft's been here for 15 months. Thank you. Irie Man 42 has gifted a sub. Thank you so much. Ilkek's been here for 26 months. Says 26 months ago I locked it in and put a ring on TYT, and I still have the ring. So thank you for that. And let's see. Oh, I'm beefing as he says justice for Sprocket. Sprocket's gonna be just fine. I don't even think he can hear what I say through that thick skull of his. Anyway, with that said, over on Twitch, Antonia Santoro, welcome to our membership. I believe that's the Antonia that just actually began working at TYT, I believe. Well, thank you. The member is coming from inside the building in this case. Kide gifted 10 Damage Report memberships. Kide has gifted so many over the years. Thank you as always. Finally, Zane has been a member at tier 3 for 28 months. Says, woohoo, Dragon Daddy. I love Farron Cousins. Been a YouTube member of Ring of Fire since day 1. Love your work. Keep up the amazing work, and I'll keep supporting your efforts. How nice is that?
Very nice, very nice.
There you go. Okay, everybody, with that, we had a nice inspiring moment there at the end with Andrew Lawrence. Now, unfortunately, I'm gonna make you listen to She Who Shall Not Be Named. Let's jump into this.
And also, I'd like to point out by the emojis by your name here, it looks like you're more of a political activist than anything. Clearly, unfortunately, you think Ukraine comes before the United States. I'm not sure what the black flex is. I mean, is that digital blackface? But congratulations on graduating from school. But I'd like to
No, it is about honoring black
Ms. Weingarten, I reclaim my time. I didn't ask you a question.
Dear God, when are we going to be able to move past this time in American history? No, she's still there. She's still technically able to question people who come to testify before the House Marjorie Greene. That was Randy Weingartner, the American Federation of Teachers president right there. And what Marjorie Greene is attempting to do there, I think that those of you who pay attention to politics a lot, you already know what it is. It's supposed to be a Katie Porter thing, or an AOC thing, or an Ayanna Pressley thing, where like she has a thing that demonstrates a point and she comes out of the interaction looking really good, except no, there's a reason she had to cut off Randy there, is because Randy was pointing out how stupid the point that she'd made is, and she knew that she couldn't bear the scrutiny. The fact that the evidence she came with was, how dare you have a Ukrainian flag, and are you doing digital blackface? My God, she is garbage. I'm not even gonna hold her for garbage people of the week. Just every day, 24/7, she's garbage. Farron, what do you think?
There's so many just bizarre things. Like my first thought is she may have just seen the tweet and be like, you know what, this is a good picture of me. Can we get this printed out? Well, not really, but it has to have a legislative purpose. All right, print it out. I'll figure it out later. I want this picture big enough so I can frame it later. But what she did in that hearing is so disgusting, and it reminds us how lucky we were a year ago when she wasn't on committees, when we didn't have to listen to these idiotic lines of questioning, because it's not just what we saw in that clip. It wasn't just the rest of it. It's every hearing that she has been involved in this year. You're gonna find an article about it after the hearing ends, sometimes before the hearing ends, because she either says something completely off the wall, completely unrelated, completely false. Just like last week, she got slapped down by her own committee and was then forbidden from talking for the rest of the committee. We're living with lunacy in Congress. And it doesn't have to be this way. I'm not saying that there was ever a time when Congress was nothing but professional, smart, wonderful people, but we've certainly detoured from the one or two weirdos to, well, the weirdos now have all the power and they get to call the shots. That's what it is with Marjorie Taylor Greene. AOC was right when she said it's Greene calling the shots for House Republicans, not Kevin McCarthy. And this pathetic, disgusting display that she put on this week just kind of further cements that to me.
Yeah, I really wonder who would be more excited if she lost her primary. Would it be me or Kevin McCarthy at this point? I'm not sure. But that said, as disgusting as that display was, it arguably gets even more disgusting in this.
Are you a mother?
I am a mother by marriage.
By marriage, I see.
And my wife is here with me, so I'm really glad that she's here. Rabbi Sharon Klein.
Ms. Weingarten, I reclaim my time. I didn't ask you a question.
Sorry.
What I'd like to talk about is your recommendations to the CDC as not a medical doctor, not a biological mother, and really not a teacher either. You had no business advising the CDC what the medical guidelines were for school closures, because now we have a nation of school children who have suffered because of it. The problem is people like you need to admit that you're just a political activist, not a teacher, not a mother, and not a medical doctor.
I don't even I guess I'm gonna skip by the fact that she called her not a teacher, even though I checked and she taught high school for 6 years. So in addition to being, in charge of a massive union of teachers and all that, that was her attacking stepmoms. What are we doing? Like, I thought you guys were focused on Bud Light and Dr. Seuss, and are there not as many Republican stepmoms as lib stepmoms? That's not like a woke thing. That's just a thing. That's just a family thing. Where is this coming from? Is this her having had some issue with a stepmom in the past and not realizing that that's not a universal experience? That that you don't get to decide who is a parent or who gets to care about their kids? What a bizarre war to step into, Farron.
Yeah, if the clip would have kept going, I think like 30 seconds later, Ted Cruz busted there and said, stepmoms. No, but for real, Oh, what a fun way to
No, he'd be watching from the hallway, like around the door.
Yeah, wow.
Google it, everyone.
Oh God. But anyway, listen, this is a disturbing attack, even for Marjorie Taylor Greene. And let's not also overlook the fact that she said, I didn't ask you a question. You literally asked her a question and she was responding. And then you're like, I didn't ask you a question. I mean, you're gaslighting her as she is sitting there trying to answer the question you asked.
Yeah, it's 100% gaslighting. People are speculating. In fact, a guy named Tiny says that it's not so much the stepmom, it's her not being straight or whatever. Which, sure, I'm sure that Marjorie is not passing up an opportunity to be homophobic, definitely. But she is also explicitly attacking non-biological moms. So she is just needlessly offending so many people who are just living their life trying to be good people. What a piece of garbage. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for her garbage. I want to thank everyone who joined us for the program today, but most especially Farron. As always, it is a pleasure to have access to some of your time. Where can people watch more of your work?
YouTube.com/The Ring of Fire. My other channel is YouTube.com/Farron Balanced. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok @Farron Balanced.
Thank you. Glad to have you on. Have a good one.
Thank you, you too.
And thank you everyone for being here. By the way, I see your comments asking for when we are gonna start the Garbage People Hall of Fame. I'm thinking about it now. I think we might need to give people that distinction every once in a while when they go above and beyond in diving to the bottom of the dumpster. But anyway, that's all the time we have for today. Indisputable is up next. Everyone go vote for the Garbage People of the Week, and Brett and I will be breaking them down tomorrow. For now though, stay safe out there, stay sane out there, and we'll see you soon.